I'm going to start with the supplementary paper. So if you guys can open the 2021 supplementary paper, and I'm going to focus on question 3, 4, and then we're going to do the prelim paper from 2021, question 3 and 4. Okay, I'm going to ask people, I just want to switch on my phone as well, to notify me in the chat. I want communication. I want people to talk to me so that I can see that I am actually on the meeting and people are actually benefiting. So with a thumbs up, could you indicate that you've got your question paper open, you've got your data open? Okay, 1, 2, 3. There's Dynamica. Right, so let's see. I'm going to open its 3 countries, the spreadsheet, which contains information about the services provided to people in the different countries, and work in the services worksheet. So before I start, just take note of what you should be doing. You should be using functions and formula for all calculations. So if you answer an answer and you calculated it with your calculator and you type it in, it will not be marked even if the answer is correct. Use absolute cell references only when necessary. Remember, when do you use absolute cell reference? You use absolute cell reference when you copy down and you are referencing a function where the address shouldn't change. There are going to be some examples like that. The third bullet is just as important. Insert functions and formula in such a manner that the correct results will still be obtained even if changes are made to the data. So when you insert a function or a formula, you cannot reference something in the data. So if you look at the spreadsheet that I've got open at the moment, you will see that in row 5, I've got Angola. So let's say one of the functions require you to reference Angola. You are not allowed to reference Angola in the data because you will not get a mark, because what happens if Angola changes? Then your whole function or your formula won't work anymore, okay? And then the fourth bullet says, should you need to use building blocks, use the allocated space in the spreadsheet. So if you scroll to the right, you will see that there is an allocated space for the building blocks. Please use those building block spaces, but please also remember that when you insert a function or you do use the building blocks, that it is important that you use the row that the cell is in. So let's say you want to use a building block for row 5, you should have it on row 5, because you can't just randomly put in a building block wherever you want to, because what's going to happen if you need to copy it down? Then the building block won't work anymore. So it's important that you do use the building blocks. See, you do use the building blocks in the necessary row where you are planning to use the building blocks. Okay, are we all okay? Can we start? Just give me a thumbs up again. There's a hand I see.
Everything is fine. Yes, everything is fine.
Thank you. I see there's a hand. 2 people are raising. Oh, yes, thumbs up. Okay, cool. Thank you. Right, so the first question says, no, before I start the question, let's just have a look at the data, because it's always important to understand what the data does. So the question said that this is data, if I can just quickly jump back, that contains, or at least this is a spreadsheet that contains information about the services provided to people in the different countries, and there's a services spreadsheet. So we've got Médecins Sans Frontières, if I can speak French to you. It's MSF. MSF is Doctors Without Borders, technically. Okay, so if you look at the spreadsheet, then you will see that MSF, which is Doctors Without Borders, have assisted certain countries in 2019. Okay, and if you look at the column A, you will see that these are the countries that they've assisted. Okay. If you look towards the right columns, you'll see that it says the year that the country was first helped. It will become relevant just now. These are the numbers of outpatients. These are the numbers of malaria. These are the numbers of births. And if you can look at that, you'll see that Afghanistan has got a lot of births. At least they had a lot of births in the 1980s. Okay. Major help, I don't know what that is, but if they want us to refer to major help, we'll probably see that. Hepatitis C, DRTB, I don't know what DRTB is, but I see that there is a DRTB and there is a TB. There's individual mental health, there's group mental health, there's clear water, there's something in question 3.5 that I don't know. There's a danger status, that is disastrous, critical, and moderate. There's a target. I don't know what the target is, but basically this one says that these are the number of people that were assisted by service. Okay, so this is the background of the sheet. It is important to look at the sheet and it is important to understand what the sheet's data contains, but because you're not going to blindly just start the functions without understanding what is happening. Okay, so let's see. I'm starting with question 3.1. Right, change the border around cell C2 to a thick red border. I'm going to start my stopwatch. The moment that you've done this question, thumbs up. I'm starting my stopwatch. You are doing this question, I'm assuming. Is that a hand? Please, you need to assist me with hands. Right. Do I have a thumbs up yet of someone that has started, that has done the question, completed the question? Remember, the question counts. Yes.
I'm sorry, there is 3 hands of people. I don't know if you want to just ask them if they want to ask something.
Okay, go ahead. Can't see who they are though, but I do see the hands.
It's Kiyomo Khetswe, Mitchell, and Atlegang.
Okay. Do those people want to ask something? I'm working a lot with thumbs up. Ne? So if you want to ask something, please put up your hand. If I want you to give me a reaction, please give me a thumbs up. Okay. So do I have a question?
Kutini, just give me a second. Lesapu, please switch off your camera. I see you looking at the camera. Lesapu, please switch off your camera.
Okay. Could the people that are asking questions pick up their hand, speak, please just speak? Or is that an indication that you are done? 5 people are raising their hands, okay. Indications that they are done. There's a done, cool. All right, so if you look at the number of, at least if you look at the marks of the question, you'll see 3.1 counts 2 marks, which means it shouldn't take you more than 2 minutes to answer this question. Also, there is no presentation. Someone's asking, they can't see the presentation. There's no presentation. I have the question paper on the left and the memo, or at least the data file on the right. If you cannot view the presentation, just log out, log that back in. Thank you, Kim. Can I leave the technical questions for you guys to handle?
We will do that.
Yes, you can. We'll go on. We'll manage it. Then you can just do the presentation.
Thank you. All right, so let's see. 3.1 counts 2 marks, which means 2 things. 3.1 counts 2 marks, which means 2 minutes, not more than that. Also remember that the Excel takes a long time to do. So that means that you shouldn't take longer than 2 minutes to do it, because we want to save on these easy questions so that when we get to the difficult questions, we are actually able to save some time, or at least spend the time that we've saved. So I'm in C2. All right. And then they tell me change the border. So I'm going to click on font. And I'm going to look at the borders. However, they're saying change it to a thick red border. So firstly, I need to change my color to red. Secondly, I need to change my border to thick. Okay. So once I've clicked on thick and I've changed my color to red, then I'll see that there's a thick red border around cell C2. Okay. Who was able to do that? Just give me a thumbs up. Cool. I see hands. I don't know who they are, but I see them. Thank you. All right. Let's look at 3.2. 3.2 counts 3 marks, which means it shouldn't take us longer than 3 minutes. If you read the question, it says insert a function in cell P9. So the very first thing I do is I will go to P9. Okay, so there's P9, right? Because that's where the function should be. To display the average number of outpatients in column C. Okay, so in column, and I'm not going to go through the spreadsheet again because remember I have gone through the spreadsheet once I opened it because I remember that these are the services that have been provided by Doctors Without Borders. So in column C, I'm sitting with outpatients, and the question requires us to display the average number of outpatients treated. Could you in the chat give me the function name? I see chat, but I don't see answers yet. Okay, now I'm starting to see answers. Thank you, Prati. Mohammed said I should ask Missouri Lan, so I'm hoping Missouri Lan is answering. Ma'am, may you please minimize the screen of the question paper when you're explaining the question? I cannot because I'm referring to the question. You need to see the question. As soon as I'm going to answer the cell, at least the function, I will minimize it. Okay, right. So average. Thank you. I see lots of you know that the function is average. So I'm going to insert a function in cell P9 to display the average number of outpatients, and I need to format the cell to display the result with no decimal. So I'm going to go to P9 and I'm going to type in equal, and I'm going to type in average because that's what you are saying, right? And then I'm going to select column C as the question requires me to. Note that you shouldn't select 76 because that's not part of the data. That is a summary of some kind. I'm assuming it's the sum. Okay. And they say we should format the function so that no decimal numbers display. It doesn't say the function should not, or at least the answer should not display any decimal numbers. It says that we should format the cell. So what I'm saying is the important point between whether we should use the format function, at least the format feature of whether we should insert a function to round. In this specific case, the question says we should format it, which means I need to go to format and decrease the decimal symbols so that there are no decimal symbols. If they required us to insert a function to display no decimal numbers, then it would have been the round function. Okay, I didn't open the memo. I'm quickly just going to open the memo so that we can see if we actually obtained the marks or not. Okay, so question 3.1 said we changed it to a thicker border and the borderline is red. In this specific case, we have chosen average and we have no decimal numbers, but it should be a format decimal numbers. It shouldn't be a function because if it is a function, it is not answering the question. Okay, right, next question. So let's look at 3.3. Are we all still okay at this stage? Can anybody give me an indication of are we still fine? Yes, there's a yes. Okay, so let's look at question 3.3. There's lots of yeses, thank you. Okay, 3.3 says, the services offered by MSF are listed from column C to column L. So let's have a look. I remember seeing this when I scanned through the data net. So the services that were provided are in column C to L. Okay, I can't see L at the moment. I will be seeing L soon as I minimize that. So from C to L, I've got services. And in those cells, we are actually looking at the data and we are seeing that it is numbers. Okay, so I'm assuming that I'm going to have to do something with the numbers, right? They are saying insert a function in cell P11. Okay, so let's quickly run to P11. So here's P11. To determine how many different kinds of services are available for use by the people in DRC. So DRC is sitting in row 20. Ne? It's a country. So DRC is sitting in row 20. And the services are in column C to L. And they are indicating that if there is a number in that cell, it means that service is available. So I'm assuming that if there is no number in that cell, that service is not available. Okay, so now they want us in P11 to insert a function to determine how many different kinds of services are available for the people of DRC. Is there anybody that has the guts to tell me out loud which function this will be? Okay, fine. Type it in the chat then. Is there someone? Cool. What's the function? What's the function? Tlotli? No, that's not it. Who's the person talking? Are you going to shout out the function to me? Do that?
Madam, may I get an
What is the function? What is the function name? Thank you. Which school is that? Please tell me. Who?
Again.
Okay, I can't hear, but please type it in the chat. Thank you, school. You are correct. It is the count function. So let's have a look at how we are going to insert the count function. We are going to insert the count function. And I'm doing what you're saying, ne? Going to insert the count function from column C to column L. Ne? And with my eyes, I see this, the answer should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Do you see that? Okay, so now I'm hoping that the answer is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What is the answer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Because of the fact that there are numbers in the cells, which I indicated is relevant, and counts the values in the cell. If it had been text, what would the function have been? In the chat. If those numbers were text, count A, there we go, right? So what's the difference between count and count A? Count counts numbers, count A counts text. In other words, if it's a count A number, it counts text. And if it's a count number, it counts numbers. Right. So let's have a look at the next question. Question 3.4 indicates insert a function in cell P13 to determine how many countries were first helped in the 1980s. I'm going to give you a minute to quickly attempt this question, since it is a difficult question, and then I'm going to explain it to you.
Where did you take it? Why did you?
Okay, did you have enough time? Right, so let's have a look. I don't know. Okay, someone says no, but let me explain anyways. Or do you want another minute? At least this question counts 6 marks, so I can give you 2 minutes. Okay, well, I think 2 minutes is enough. So let's see. Insert a function in cell P13. Someone says they can't hear me. Am I audible?
You are, Futini.
Thank you. All right, so let's go to cell P13. So here's cell P13. I'm going to maximize as soon as I'm done, but I want you to first understand the question. Insert a function in P13 to determine how many countries were first helped in the 1980s. So in column B, you'll see that this is the year that they were first helped in. The problem is the question indicates that it should be the year, or at least, how did they put it? In the 1980s. So in other words, it should be in the 1980s, not only the year 1980. So what you need to do is you need to find a way now that counts from 1980 up to 1989. So already in my question, or at least in my explanation, I indicated to you that it is a count function. So I've got if function. The first part is easy because it's the range of the count if. Okay, that's easy. The second one is a bit more difficult because the criteria should actually then be in the 1980s. So, can someone indicate to me what I should be doing now? Or at least let me rather rephrase myself. What am I doing wrong? Because I'm doing something wrong. Am I doing something wrong? Yes, I am. I want to count 1980, but 1980 won't work. Because if I do count 1980, if I put it like this, it is only going to count 1980. And I don't want 1980. I want the 1980s. So it should be larger and equal to 1980, correct? But it should also be smaller and equal to 1989. So attempt the one that's in the chat. The one that's in the chat is the 1908 with a star. Will that work? Let's test it. Because that was my first attempt as well. And then if I put 1980, the problem with that specific function, or at least with that specific function, is the fact that that year is actually a number. And if you put 1980 with a star, the wildcard changes it to text now. So it won't work because it's going to look for text. So my first attempt of greater and equal to 1980 still stands. Now it's a good mistake to make. Okay, so my answer of greater and equal to 1980 still stands. Can someone indicate to me what I should be doing further? Anybody? Anybody? Use account ifs. Okay, so if we do use account ifs, what would be changing in the function? Remember when we used account if, the first reference was the range, the second reference was the criteria. The moment I make it account ifs function, you'll see that all of a sudden now my order has changed. It's no more counting. Okay, so the first one is the criteria, no, it's still counting, but the first one is the criteria range greater than 1980. You can use a zoom. You can't see this anyway clearer because it's in the function bar. You can use Zoom from your side to zoom the Microsoft Teams. So consider that. Okay. Will I be selecting the same thing? And will I be saying now smaller and equal to 1989? Someone's asking, is this Excel? Yes, please. Okay, when I press enter, I get an answer of 24. Okay, I'm not sure if I'm right. Okay, but what I can do if I have time, obviously, is I can select the filter and then determine or count with my eyes if possible. Okay, it won't work here, but with my eyes count if it is 24. Okay. Right, so let's quickly look at what I did in my answer. Do I even have mine open? No, I don't. Okay, so let's see if the answer is 24. And yes, I also got 24. And I did use account ifs function. And I will be getting my full marks because if you look at the countifs function, you'll see that the countifs function gives a mark for the countifs, 1 mark for the criteria, 1 mark for the range, 1 mark for the criteria, and another one for the range. Okay. The subtraction order would be if you've used this way or that way. Can you see? So if you use the countifs, it's not necessary to do a subtraction. You will allocate, well, that mark will be gotten automatically. I can't write the formula there now. Please have a look at the marking guideline. You'll see that the formula is there. Okay, there are different ways to do it, but I'm going to concentrate on the easiest, most efficient way. Okay, so if you look at the marking guideline, you'll see that the countifs counts greater than 1980 and smaller than 1989. The countif counts everything 1980, greater than 1980, and then subtracts the ones that are smaller than 1989. There's also a count A that counts everything and then subtracts the two, either way, basically. All right, but the easiest one would be, okay, I'm going to repeat this question slowly. I'm just concerned about time. I am going as slow as possible. Okay, so let's have a look again at the question. It says insert a formula to determine how many countries or function were first helped in the 1980s. So if you look at the data, you'll see the 1980s include 1983, 1988, 1980. I don't want 1991, eh? I want 1985. I don't want 2015, which tells me that there's a range of dates that I need to consider. Basically 1980, 81, 82, 83, 84, up to 89. All right. And immediately when I said they want us to count, the function is countif. But the reason that we are using the countifs function is because there's more than one criteria. If there was only one criteria, in other words, 1980, it would have been only a countif function. But because there's more than one criteria, the first criteria is greater than 1980, the second criteria is smaller than or equal to 89. In other words, we should be using the countifs function because the countifs function only counts if both criteria have been met. And in this case, both criteria include greater than 1980 and less than 1989. So basically counting 1980, 81, 82, 83, 84, up to 89. All right. And that is the answer to the question. Right. I'm moving on to 3.6. 3.6 is saying, no, sorry, 3.5. 3.5 is saying apply data validation to cell range. Let me just get my data next to me. To cell range M5 up to M75 so that only the values, disastrous, critical, or moderate, can be entered. Where are they? They are in 05, 06, and 07, right? So I don't need to necessarily go and insert data validation and type in the values because they are there already. So let's start with the data validation should be in M5 to M75, okay? I'm there. If you know about data validation, you will be clicking on data and this little icon is data validation. And because it's 3 values, it's a list. Okay. Where is this list? This list is currently from A5 to A, what's this? 7. Okay. And I click OK. When you go to those cells now, you would be able to select the 3 values that you have allocated, have selected for the data validation. Right. So, who can tell me in the chat, what is the purpose of data validation? See, the problem is we teach how to do, but we never teach why. Why do I want to select from the list? Why do I not want someone to type something in? Anybody? Does anybody have the guts to answer me out loud? Can someone explain what GIGO means? Garbage in, garbage out. Okay, someone WAW is saying accuracy. If you write only the word accuracy in the theory paper, you will not be getting that mark, by the way. So basically what that means, takes too long. I've got time, you've got time. Okay, what does garbage in? The problem is if you say garbage in, garbage out, you need to tell me why you're saying garbage in, garbage out. You're probably right, but you're not telling me the reason for data validation. You are actually just giving me a concept, garbage in, garbage out. So I have to then decide how your garbage in, garbage out actually fits my data validation. Okay. Someone saying to minimize garbage in, garbage out. That does still not answer my question. So the person that said, to restrict the user to choose on the list only, you would be getting that answer. Accuracy is correct, but you can't just write accuracy. You can't just write restrict garbage in, garbage out, because remember, the person that's marking your paper is not necessarily, think about it like that, a cat person. So if that person is not a cat person and you tell me Gijo, I won't know. Okay. So here comes a good answer. If the program gets incorrect output, the information will be incorrect. In other words, it refers to accuracy. So why are we using a data validation list? To ensure that the data that is currently entered is correct. To minimize spelling mistakes. Did you see why I wrote moderate? I typed in it. But I could have typed in the incorrect thing. So now when I do analysis, it is actually not going to analyze my data correctly, which is garbage in, garbage out, but you're still not explaining it to me nicely. Okay, so remember that for a theory paper. Okay, next question. Are we all still okay? .6. Thank you. Right, 3.6. The treatment, DRTB, is indicated in column H, whatever that means. Okay. Apparently, there's more than one type of TB. Okay, so DRTB and TB. So DRTB is sitting in column H. Right. If they don't ask me to do anything, but they say insert a formula in cell P15 to calculate which percentage of people with DRTB were treated by MSF. Remember who's MSF? In India in row 32. Okay, so let's look at India. There's India and column H, right? So in India, 970 people were treated. The question is asking, insert a formula in cell P15 to calculate which percentage of people with DRTB were treated by MSF in India. Okay, so 970 people were treated in India. And if I want to calculate the percentage, I will go down to the total, which was DRTB, and I need to calculate a percentage for India. Could someone indicate to me how I'm going to do that? Remember, we're in P13. So now we've got the problem. Okay, so India is 970 The total is 2,489. Could someone indicate to me how I'm going to calculate the percentage? Anyone? How do you calculate percentage? You basically put something over something, right? So in other words, if you put, at least if you want to calculate the percentage of India, you will have to take this cell and divide it by the total. In other words, I'm going to take the answer in India. Remember, it's column H, 970, divided, there we go, by the total. Thank you, Faith. There's one as well, Kiro. Okay, so the total is sitting currently in H76. Okay, so if you look at my formula bar, you'll see I'm taking the value and I'm dividing it by the total. Now, before I multiply it with 100, I just want to check, because the cell format is already percentage. Okay, so I don't have to divide it by 100, but let's say I do divide it by 100. This is what's going to happen, and a percentage cannot be, well, multiplied by 100 at least. A percentage cannot be more than 100. So before I multiply it by 100, I need to first check if the format of the cell allows me to just do it the way I did it, or if I still have to multiply it by 100. Okay, so in this case, I didn't have to. Are we all happy? I'm assuming we are. Thank you, Katleon. Right. Let's look at question 3 point, where are we now? 7. 3.7 says, open the password protected folder 3 open with the password 2021. How many spreadsheets are found in the 3 open folder, and insert your answer in cell P17. So now I have to go to the data. Okay, so let's go to the data. Here it is. The question says, open the password protected 3 open with the password 2021. So I'm going to double click on 3 open, and it's going to extract. Then it's asking for the password. Okay, and the password is 2021. If I show password, you'll see the password is 2021. And I'm going to click on OK. Yeah, I'm going to get a problem because I've already extracted it. I'm just going to say yes to all. Right. So when I open 3 open, I see that there are 5 spreadsheets. Now I can only answer the question for 3 countries. It's asking how many spreadsheets are found in the 3 open folder. Insert your answer in cell P17. So I'm going to go to P17 and I'm going to insert 5. Okay, I'm not going to go back to the questions. Many people are asking me to repeat questions. This session is recorded. So what you can do is you can go back to the recording and check how the question was done. If I'm going to have to repeat questions all the time, we are not going to go through the question papers. So, yes, 3 open is not in the data files. I assume that was sent to you because the antivirus blocked it. But if you go to the original data that has been given to you, or when you download it, or the original data, 3 open will be there. Yes, I didn't say that, but I went to fetch it. 3 open exe, and while we're on the topic, I can mention it. 3 open exe is actually seen as an application file. It's a program. And if your antivirus has been set in such a way that it deletes it, it has deleted it, which means you will not receive it. Which brings me to an important point that teachers, please make sure that your antivirus is set in such a way that it, especially for the exam, does not delete the exe files, because then you will not be able to get this specific file, which is important. Okay, so I'm just going to do 3.7 again because of the fact that you didn't have this file. The question says, open the password protected folder with the password 2021. So I'm going to open password is 2021. And there's the password. And then I click on OK. It only asks me this because I have already extracted it, but I'm just going to extract it again. The moment that I extract it, there's a folder that is called 3 Open Now, which extracts all the files in this folder. And when I open 3 Open, the question says, how many spreadsheets are found in the 3 Open folder? 5. Yes, I just explained why you don't have this data, most probably because your antivirus has deleted it. So I would suggest that you go to the DBE's website and then you download the original data files from there, but then make sure that this specific file is not deleted. Okay, I'm going to move on to 3.8. Okay, so we're still in the 3 countries file, né? It says find the chart at the bottom of the services spreadsheet. Now I need to go right down to the bottom. Oops. Okay, there it is. Then you look at the chart, and it says the total number of people in row 76 at the chart displays the total number of people assisted by some of the services provided. Okay, so now we know what's the reason for 76 being summed. Okay, so then we can see that the total number by each service or selected services, I don't know. Then they say carry out the following instructions to change the chart to display as shown below. Now, before you just jump to the picture, there are certain bullets, and if there are bullets, then rather follow the bullets, okay? But if I look at the chart, I see a couple of things. I see that there are only 3 services. So one of the services is not there, okay? Then I see that the data labels look different from what I see. Okay. I also see that there's a part of the chart that is a bit outside of the chart. Okay, so let's start. They say display only the services indicated in the example. Can someone tell me how I'm going to remove basically major help? So malaria should be there. Births should be there, in fact. Outpatients should be there. So major help and hepatitis C shouldn't be there. How am I going to do that? Okay, so someone's saying change the selected data cells. Can someone tell me where to click so that I can remove major help and hepatitis C? Anybody? I'm assuming you guys are clicking now. Okay. So basically, I'm going to right click and I'm going to say select data. Now, which ones should be there? Outpatients, I'm looking at the picture, should be there. Malaria at least should be there. Births should be there. But major help shouldn't be there. And hepatitis C shouldn't be there. Okay. Right. Someone said select and delete. Read the question. Display only the services indicated in the example. If I delete it and it remains the same, but I did try to delete it yesterday, then I would have had a problem with the way that my graph displays. So it's always important to get your graph to display the way it displays in the question paper. Thank you, Kiro. Is that Kiro? Okay. So let's see. Change the data labels to display the names of the services and associated percentages. Can someone indicate to me where that should be done? Anybody? It says, change the data labels to display the names of the services and the associated percentages. No one. Come on, come on. I'm reading the question. It's the second bullet. Change the data labels to display the names of the services and the associated percentages. Can someone tell me where to do that? Okay, I'm moving on, seeing that it looks like no one does. I'm sure there are people that can. Okay, so let's see. I need to format the data labels. And then it says change the data labels to display the names of the services. So it is displaying the name of the services and the associated percentages. So even if I don't know much, the name and the percentage, if I deselect value, then it means I am actually seeing what I'm seeing in the question paper. There's only one more issue that I see, and that is the shape of the label, but it didn't say anything about the shape of the label. Okay, so basically, I'm just going to undo again, right click, format data labels. I want the name and I want the percentage. I do not want the value. And then it looks like that. Okay, the label options can be changed to a specific way, but it was not mentioned. I didn't even check. It does not mention where. So basically, I just want this to display. Okay, next one. Set the donut explosion to 5%. See, I remember I said in the beginning, there's a part of it that looks a bit outside. So most probably the donut explosion. So if I right click and I go to format data series, remember, if you right click on the chart, you don't see. If you don't right click on the labels, you don't see. If you don't click on the chart area, then you don't see. So you need to click on the correct place to be able to see what I see. Okay, and it says that the donut explosion should be 5%. So I'm changing the donut explosion to 5%. Okay. Right, it looks very similar. Last point, move the chart to the worksheet called service chart. So I'm going to right click on the chart. I'm going to say move chart. And they said I should move it to the chart, or at least the sheet called service chart. So I'm going to move it to service chart and I'm going to click on OK. Doesn't look as if it's there. But here's a little tip. Where it was in the first sheet, is where it will be in the second sheet. Remember, in the first sheet, it was below the data. So in the second sheet, it will be more or less in the same position. Okay. Right, so let's look at our marks. I didn't look at all the marks. Chart moved, yes. It only displays the 3 categories, yes. It displays, or at least the data labels display service names and percentage, check. And the donut explosion is set to 5%. Remember, there are other explosions and thingies that you can set over here, but the donut explosion should have been on 5%. Okay, and that is question 3. I'm not going to repeat questions, but I am going to take some questions if you have some based on the data that, or at least on the content that we just did. So if there's anybody that has a question about question 3, besides repeating a question, you can watch the video. You can actually quickly ask me in the chat or switch on your mic and ask me. Nobody? Or am I just slow? Okay. Well, in that case, I'm going to move on to question 4. Right. Question 4. Question 4 says we should open for donate. Oops. Let me just open the original. Okay, so for donate is right. We're opening. Like I just told you in question 3, but let's just read it. The details of sponsors and their donations are stored in the spreadsheet. So, okay, so it's sponsors and their details. Sponsors may make a single or a monthly donation. The card numbers from which payments are made is recorded. Okay, so let's look at the data. The data has got sponsor details. Okay, I'm assuming that these are the sponsor details. The question paper indicated, I don't know what time I'm finishing, Lawrence. What time did your teacher say we should finish? Okay, I'm finishing when the time is over. Okay, so let's see. So in other words, if I look at the spreadsheet, I will see that there are details, but they mention something about the fact that the donation type can be monthly or single, okay? And the card numbers are stored. So basically I see name and a surname, a donation type. In other words, you can do it once off, which is probably single, or you can do it monthly. Then we have a donated amount. Okay, then we have a start date. But if it's a single donation, then obviously the date will be the date. But if it's a monthly donation, I am assuming from what I'm reading at the data or on the data that every month starting that day will a donation be going off from this specific card number. Okay. I'm not too very sure what is the expiry date. Is the expiry date, because I didn't read the question yet, ne? I'm not too sure if the expiry date is the expiry date of the donation. In other words, was I able to say, okay, I want the donation to only happen for a year? Or is the expiry date the card number? So, but I want a background of what is in the data. So this is currently what I see. Okay, so let's see. The details of the sponsors, I just read that. As sponsors may make a single or a monthly donation, the card numbers from which payments are made is recorded. Okay, I saw that. Okay. In cell for F3, okay, question 4.1, cell F3. It says insert a function in cell F3 to determine the value that appears most often in column D. Okay, so column D is the donated amount. Can you just throw out to me what is the function name? There we go. Thank you, Lungile. Fast, ne? Mode. So I'm going to equal mode. Mr. Rilan, are you still here? And then D. Okay. And then I'm going to close it. So what does mode do? Mr. Rilan, where are you? Just say yes, you're there. I'm going to close it and see what does mode do. Mode determines the most donated amount. Okay. So the most donated amount is 350 Rand. Easy? I hope so. But then it becomes difficult. Several sponsors donated the same highest amount. So the amount that has been donated the most is 350. The highest amount, I don't know, by looks of it, it looks like 3,500 by looks of it, but I'm not sure. They have donated the same highest amount. Insert a function in cell CF4. Okay, cool. So Max is definitely there. Faith and Katleong. Yes, Max is definitely there. We're going to look at where Max is going to feature now, ne? Insert a function in cell F4 to determine the total value of the highest amount donated. Okay? So, determine the value of the highest amount donated. So let's start using building blocks. Okay, where are we? We are in F2, ne? I mean F4. So I'm just going to, in over here for now, I'm going to do the max as Faith indicated. Okay, so the max, I can't type in 3,500 because that second bullet said I'm not, or the third or fourth, I don't even know, said I'm not allowed to. Okay, so I'm correct. 3,500 is the highest amount. The question says to determine the total value of the highest amount. What is the other function? Lungile, you're almost right, but not there yet. It's not the function I'm looking for. What is the function I'm supposed to be using? Riabetswe, sum if and large. You can use large. I just used max because someone said max, but yes, you can use large, but rather use max. Why do you want to use large for the largest? Use max for the largest. Okay, so I'm going to say sum if. I'm going to only sum. I look here, the range of the sum. What is the criteria? The criteria is the max, correct? And what is the sum range? So what is currently funny about this question? The criteria range and the sum range is the same range. Yes, Lungile, sum if. There's others that said sum if, Central C said sum if, but Lungile was waiting for you to say it. Okay, so the range of the criteria is a B, C, D, and the sum of the criteria is also D. Interesting. Okay. Note how I've used the building block. Okay. Now, I don't want to use the building block, or at least I don't want to give my answer like that. Okay. So what is G8 actually referring to? G8, J8, not G, J8 is actually referring to the maximum. Okay. So a quick tip for you, if you don't want to use the building blocks, I'm going to copy this. Okay, I'm not copying the equal sign note. Okay, I'm only copying the function. Okay, now I'm going to go to where I used the building block. J8 is max, so I'm removing the J8 and I'm pasting the function. Look at the combination function. Connect, yes. You guys can watch the recording obviously afterwards. So if you look at J8, you'll see that it is the max function. Okay, and J8 was where I used my building block. So I went to J8, I copied the function only, I went to my formula bar and I only pasted the function that was referring to my building block, or the building block that was referring to my function. And then I press enter. Okay, I'm going to do this again. So the function is sum if, that part we are okay with. Okay, we are okay with the fact that it was a max. Ne? So we determined that the highest amount is a max. We also determined that we want to sum the highest amount. But because I don't want to include the building block, because I don't trust the marker, I'm going to remove, but before I remove it, I'm going to copy the function, Control-C on the keyboard, and then I'm going to go to my function where I used the building block, remove the reference to the building block, and paste the function from there. What is the shortcut for paste on the keyboard? The shortcut for paste on the keyboard? Control V. Thank you. Right. So when I do that, then I can remove this building block. Nothing's going to happen. Oops. I can remove the building block. Nothing is going to happen. So basically, I used the building block. I actually just abused the building block. I copied it for me to make it easy for myself, and then I pasted it back in there, and I removed the building block. Okay. I'm sure this will be helpful. Again. Single is S. Okay. Right. In 4.3, they say change the sum ifs function in cell F5 to determine the total amount of the single donations. Oh, I see. Thank you. Who was that? Yeah, I don't know. GDE schools already said S. Well done. Change the sum ifs function in cell F5 to determine the total amount of the single donations, column C, that were made in 2019. Okay. I have a problem with this 2019, by the way, because the 2019 is actually a year. And I can't only say 2019, no? So it's actually a year, but I'll come to that. So let's just understand the question first. Change the sum ifs function in cell F5 to determine the total amount of the single donations that were made in 2019. So there's my two criteria, ne? Single donations, 2019, sum ifs. Okay, so let's see. Let's look at the data. It's a single donation, so we're going to refer to C. And it's 20, according to the question, 2019. When were the other donations made? In 2018. So why am I checking that? Because if there was a 2017 as well, it would have been a more complicated function or formula in this case. But because there are only 2018s and 2019s, it kind of makes it a slightly bit easier. But let's see. So what are the mistakes? It's a sum ifs. And I'm checking to see if the ranges are in the correct places. So sum ifs, sum range. What do I want to add? I want to actually add the donations. So is the sum in D? Yes, it is. Okay. Then what should this be? This should be the criteria range. So the criteria range for single is currently sitting in C. Okay, so that part is correct. I'm a bit OCD, so I'm just going to check if we are going up to 107. Yes, we are. Okay, here's a mistake. The mistake someone in GDE said just now, it should be single. Okay, right. So that part is correct. The second criteria range should be sitting in the date, and the date is sitting in E. So E is correct, but it's not E8 to E8 if you look at that. It's from E8 to, and if I have to guess that it's the same as the others, it's going to be E107. Okay, so now I've got the sum range is right. The criteria range for the first one is right. The criteria for the first one is right. The criteria for the second one is right. But the criteria, at least the range, but the criteria is incorrect because the question said 2019. Okay, before I press enter, will someone tell me if this will work? Is this right? I'm not going to press enter. Is this smaller than 2019 correct? Nope. Why not, do you say? If I press enter, it's 0. Remember when I said, let's look at the sheet, the spreadsheet. The spreadsheet actually contains a date. So I can't, yes, thank you, HSE, who's that? So I can't just say 2019 because the data in the column is actually a date, all right? So it must be, let's just check the question again. It says, to determine the total amount of the single donations that were made in 2019. Okay, so I can approach this in different ways, but I'm going to approach it in the easiest way. Amandle, see, I'm going to approach it in the easiest way. So all the donations in 2019 should be either greater than equal to 2019 0101. There we go. Or it should be greater than 2018 1231. Please note, Amandle and whoever, yeah, please note that this is the correct regional settings for your computer. So if your computer's date is currently showing as 01/01/2019, then your regional settings are incorrect. If you look at my computer, you'll see that my computer is showing 2023/05/17, and I'm actually using that criteria. If your regional settings are incorrect, in other words, it's showing the date incorrect, or not, it's not incorrect, it's just in a different format, and you insert this in the format that yours is, you might not get the mark because your regional settings should be correct. So now I'm going to put this on the teacher. Learners, if your date is currently showing not like mine, please at the end of this lesson, ask your teacher why, because your regional settings should be correct. I'm putting the teachers on the spot now. Okay, so I'm assuming now if I press enter, it will work. And I'm crossing my fingers that it will. And thank goodness it does. Why does it work? Because firstly, my regional settings are correct. Secondly, I used the correct cell and there are only 2018s and 2019s, right? So I want all the ones that were donated in 2019. Thank goodness there's not a 2020 because then it should have been another part of the sum ifs. Okay, so let's just have a look at this. What did we do? We corrected the spelling of single. We've corrected the criteria range for the date because it should have been 107. And we corrected the date. So we technically made 3 corrections to the function. Why am I only getting 3 marks? Because I actually made 4 because of the greater than equal to. Ne? So the marks are single, the range, and the criteria. Okay. I want to do question 4.4 with you. Maybe before the clock strikes for the load shedding. Okay. 4.4 says, and stay with me now, MSF will use the data in column C. Stay with me. In column C, to determine which type of message should be sent to the sponsors. Okay, so I'm working with monthly and single, ne? Note. Note, a bank card has expired if the expiry date in column G is before the date in cell H4. Okay, let's stop and just understand now. So the bank card expires. Okay, so there's the card. So the bank card expires on this date. Okay, so what two types of information have I got at this stage? I've got that there are donations that are monthly and single. Remember when we started, I concluded that monthly means that this person is going to donate every month, and single means that this person will most probably only donate once. Okay, so how are they going to donate? They are probably going to use their cards. Okay, so there's the card number. Each card has an expiry date, and there's the date in column G. Okay, so in other words, if a person said he's going to start donating whenever, he can only donate with this specific card number until the card expires. Okay, that's what I've got so far. That's all I have so far. Right. They say use the donation type, column C. Yes, I have been. And the expiry date, column G. Okay, so I know which two things I'm supposed to be working with. Okay, now insert a function in cell H8 to display the following. Stay with me. The word expired if the bank card of a monthly sponsor has expired. So in other words, a sponsor should be monthly. And if this person's card has expired, there it is, the word expired should appear. Okay, before I move on, let's see. I'm going to quickly just jump to my building block. So if, I'm feeling the if. Are you feeling the if? Even if I didn't want to feel the if, I feel the if. Okay, so if this date, okay, is before means smaller than this date, then for now, I'm going to say expired. Is it my screen that's blank, Randfontein? Help me. Is my screen blank? I don't think so because it's on my phone as well. Yeah.
No, Christine, it's not you.
Okay, Randfontein, please just check your connection again. Okay, I'm back in the chat. All right. So if that date is before today, then the card has expired, correct? Else, the card has not expired. I'm just going to say not for now. Okay, so if that date, just restart your connection. People are saying network problems. Okay, so if you look at the date, the expiry date in G8, okay? So the card that this person is using is expiring on the date in column G, right? And how do I know a date has expired? There's a date in column 4. If the date is before this date, it has expired. Okay, so let's for now test if the card has expired. Okay, I can't drag it down because there's a reference to a function, but let me drag it down to make the mistake. Okay, if I drag it down, things are going to happen. Yeah, see, it's going to not give me the correct answer. So I cannot drag it down because I'm making reference to something that shouldn't be dragged down. I also have load shedding, so I can't see on my keyboard. I'm playing in the dark here. Right. So, okay, let's maximize the screen for now. I'll jump back to it now. So in other words, if this date is before this date, the card has expired. Basically, that's what I'm saying. Okay, cool. So 2020, yes, it has expired. I'm testing it now. I'm just running down to see. So there are a few cards that have not expired, ne? How do I know? Because this date is after this date. How do you know something has expired? When do you not drink the milk? When the milk date has passed already, you do not drink the milk. So in other words, the screen is maximized. I don't see Curtis. Koza, I've maximized my screen. Maybe your connection is a bit slower than mine, but I have maximized my screen, but you can use the Zoom on your Microsoft Teams. Okay, so let's see. When is a card expired? When the date of the card is before today, in other words. Okay, today is the 17th of May. If this date is before that date, the card has expired. As easy as that. Right, I'm going to jump back to the question paper. Right. The other problem is that the monthly donors cards should be checked, correct? Because if it's a single donor, do I actually care if the card expired? Not really, because he's given me my money and I ran. Okay, so the only time I will be interested in a card that expires is when it is a monthly donation. All right, so let's test monthly because I'm still not done with the first bullet yet. Ne? If a person is a monthly donator, okay, so let's see. If this, no, if this is monthly, he is a monthly donator, else he is a single donator. Okay, let me stick with single. For now, I just want the if statement, actually. I don't need anything more than that. It feels useless because I'm actually testing if it's monthly or single. Yes, I do, but I want this part of the function now. Okay, so we are checking if this person's card has expired and he is monthly. If a person's card has expired and he's single, I wouldn't be interested. Okay, so let's run back to the question paper for now. Okay, so what am I checking? I'm checking if the person card is expired and he is monthly. I'm interested. Okay, the word expired should appear. If a person is a monthly sponsor and the card has not expired, you will say remind. Okay, are you getting I'm starting to feel whether it's an and or an or. Okay, so in other words, if the card is expired and he's monthly, then I want the word expired. If the card has not expired, in other words, remind, and he's monthly, I will type the word remind. And if this person was a single donator, in other words, he's only given a single donation, then a different message should appear. Okay, so let's see. Currently, Okay, so let me just quickly just recap on the question. If it's a monthly sponsor and his card has expired, then I want the word expired. If it's a monthly sponsor and his card has not expired, I want the word remind. If he's a single donator, I don't care if his card has expired or not. Okay, so I can go as far as to change my if statements so far. If he is a single donator, I just want the hash key. So I'm starting to work in the function now. Okay, so if his card has expired, okay, and he is a monthly donator, then the word expired must appear. They're not there. Okay, if he is a monthly donator and his card has not expired, oops, I want something else. Okay, so let's see. If he's a single donator, I'm not interested. He's going to get a hash key. I'm not using a function yet, Linda. I'm still trying to explain how to get to the function. It's going to be a nested if function. Okay, so I'm trying to figure out, is it going to be a nested if function for an and, or is it going to be a nested if function for an or? Okay, but I'm feeling the and already. So now I'm starting to work in my criteria from the question. If a card has expired and he is monthly, I want the word expired. If a card has not expired and it is monthly, I want the word remind. If a person is a single person and not a monthly person, I want the hashtag key. So, can someone tell me how many criteria for the first one should be valid? In other words, the question says if it's a monthly donator and the card has expired, it should say expired. So, how many criteria are you hearing me say? Just put the number down in the chat. The first one, if you read the question. 1, someone says 1. If you read the first bullet, the word expired, if the bank card, just the first bullet, the word expired, if the bank card of a monthly sponsor has expired. Tipo, you're saying 2, I'm going to go with 2. Why? Because if it's monthly and it has expired, and it has expired, then I want the word expired. Okay, so I'm going to start building the if function. There we go, 2. Yeah, for the first one only. I'm going to start building the if function. Please stay with me. If the person is monthly, oops, stay with me. Okay, are we still okay with this? If the person is monthly, okay, what should happen if the person is monthly? We must test if the card has expired. Okay, so it's an and. If he is monthly, we must test if the card expired. How do we know that the card has expired? This date will be before this date. Okay. Now, what should happen if the person is monthly and his card has expired? The word expired should appear. Okay, are you still okay with me at this stage? I will repeat it. Okay, so we test if the person is monthly. Yes, he is. If the person is monthly, we must test if the card expired. Note, what happens if the card has not expired, then we want to remind him. But he's still monthly. Okay. So if a person is monthly, we will test if the card expired. Okay. If he is monthly and the card has not expired, we will remind him. Okay. What will happen if the person is not monthly? We will just put a hashtag because then it's probably single. Okay. Now take a minute to take that function in. Understand it. If a person is monthly and only if a person is monthly will I make the next test. Okay, that's why I wanted to know how many criteria, because if there were 2 criteria, it means there's a test and another test. If there was only 1 criteria, we would have tested only once and then continued. Okay, so if a person is monthly, we will test if his card has expired. If his card has not expired, we will remind him. If he is not monthly, we will only put a hashtag because then I actually don't care about his card. Okay, but just before I copy it down, I just must remember to do the absolute cell reference for H4. Okay, so logically, let's test. Is this guy monthly? Yes. Has his card expired? Yes. What do I want if that is the case? Expired. Okay. Let's test number 2. Is this guy monthly? No. Then I'm not interested. Hashtag. Next one. Is this guy monthly? Yes. Has his card expired? No. Remind him. Okay. And so you can test them all by dragging them down. Okay. So what have I got here? If a person is monthly and his card has expired. If a person is not monthly, I just want the hashtag. If a person is monthly and his card has not expired, I want remind. Okay, so I'm going to repeat this again. If a person is monthly, and his card has expired, I want expired. If a person is single, I'm not interested, single. If a person is monthly and his card has not expired, I want to remind him. Okay, and so I can drag them down now. So basically, all the singles must have hashtags. Do you see that? All the monthlies have another test. And the other test is, does the card or has the card expired or not? If the card has expired, then I want to expired. If the card has not expired, but he is monthly, I want remind. So I want you to just have a look at the function again. If you look at the function, you'll see I'm testing for monthly. After I've tested for monthly, I test for the expiration of the card. If the expiration of the card is false, I remind him. If the monthly is false, I give him a hashtag. So in other words, there's my 2 if statements. My 2 if statements are basically, is he monthly? Yes, he is. Do something. Is he not monthly? Give him a hashtag. All right. My second if statement says, has the card been
Fortini, your sound. Just check your sound, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can. Thank you.
Sorry, I
Continue.
don't know where you lost me. My signal got lost. Tell me where you lost me, Amarina.
Just repeat what you just said.
Okay.
It wasn't long.
Okay. Right. So let's see. I've got a first if statement that tests if it's monthly. What happens if it's monthly? I do another test. What happens if it's not monthly? I want a hashtag. Right? I've got a second if statement that only takes place if the person is monthly. And then I test the expiration. If the expiration is false, I just remind him. Okay, so what you can do is you can bring in the two functions together, né? Because I've done a first test and I've done a second test. Do you see that? So the first test says if it's monthly, basically do something, test. If not, make it a hashtag. The second test was, did it expire? Expire. If it didn't expire, remind. Okay, so basically, if it's monthly, do another test. So I'm going to put test here just to explain. If it's monthly, do another test. If it is expired, put expired. If not, put remind. Now I'm going to put those two functions into one. Ne? So which one is the first test? The monthly is the first test. Ne? So if the person is a monthly person, I will put the second test over here. Right? In other words, I'm going to copy this whole story over here like I showed you earlier. And I'm going to put it where it says test now. Right? And if you look at my function, you'll see that it tests for monthly. If it's not monthly, it's hashtag. If it is monthly, it checks for expired. If it is monthly and it has not expired, then I remind him. And there's my whole story. Greater than, expired. If not expired, there. Okay. No, not there. There. What am I doing wrong? If there. Okay, there we go. In other words, if it's monthly, test. If it's not monthly, hashtag. If it's expired, expired, else remind. Sure, this was hard. Can someone give me an indication or of, are you still with me? Can I take questions on this question? I think there's a hand, actually. Is there a hand? No. Can I take questions? Oh, have I lost you? Is this too difficult? So it took us about more than 7 minutes, obviously, to understand the question. But when you actually go and do this very, very complicated nested if, you will see that there are, the first thing I asked, are there two criteria or just one? If there was only one criteria, then the second test would have gone in the false because there's only one that should be true. But because there were two, I basically tested for the two. Okay, so I tested, is the card expired? I tested, is he monthly? If he is monthly and it has expired, then I do my true value basically. If it is monthly and it is not expired, I do my false value. And I do my very false value if it's not monthly. Will this be in the exam? This is an external exam, so the chances are quite good. Okay, right. Can I move on to the next question? Sure, this was hard. In question 4.5, we are working in the code worksheet. So I'm in the code worksheet. It says MSF allocates a code to each country to keep track of how many donations come from each country. The code is created by moving the first 2 characters of the name of the country to appear as the last 2 characters of the name of the
Fortini, we lost your sound again.
Is it me again?
Now it's better. Thank you, Fortini.
Can you still hear me?
We can hear you now, yes.
Can you still hear me?
We can still hear you now.
Hello?
Fortini, you can continue. We can hear you now.
Are you guys still okay?
Yes, we missed the last part that you said.
Hello?
There was a problem with the sound, but it's better now.
Back? Okay. I'm switching connections because our okay. Thank you. All right. So let's see. Okay, it should I'm switching just because of the fact that the power is on. So just inform me immediately. MSF allocates a code.
Fortini, I don't know if you can hear me.
Fortini has disconnected. Here she comes again.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, the internet came back on and yeah, so I'm sharing my screen and I will redo that quick. Well, I don't know what you heard, so I'm just going to start again. Okay, 4.5. It says MSF allocates a code to each country to keep track of how many donations come from each country. The code is created by moving the first 2 characters of the name of the country to appear as the last 2 characters. To determine the first 2 characters should be easy because it's a left function. Okay, and the first 2 characters basically would be the first two characters. So it's easy to determine the first two characters, okay? So China will be displayed as the bottom part of China and then the first two letters. It says insert a combination of functions in cell C3 to display the code for Argentina using the coding system. So I'm going to maximize. All right. It says I want the back part of Argentina. So the back part of Argentina would be from the right-hand side to from the right there, or let me rather use the mid. I prefer the mid. From the third character, in other words, up to the end of the, what would this be called? A string. From the end of the line, I don't know. Right, so let's see. The end would be the end, the length of it. Okay, right, so take this in for a second. It says from the third character to the end of the string. Okay, so from the third character to the end of the string will give me the rest of Argentina. Okay, the first two characters should then be put at the end of, can I say, the end of the string. Okay, so I'm going to put the first two characters at the end of the string. Okay, so I'm going to connect it with an and. I prefer the and more than the concatenate. So let's see. I've got the first two characters. I've got the last two characters. I'm putting the last few characters at the front, and I'm putting the first two characters at the back. So here's my combination of functions. So let's have a look. I want from the third character up to the end. And then I want the first two characters. So the two functions that I'm going to use would be mid. I prefer mid. It could have been right as well, but I prefer mid because we're starting at the same character. So I would start at the third character. I will move until the end. That's where length comes in. And I will then put the first two characters. So if I can just break it up into the building blocks over here, I've got the first two characters. Okay. Got the first two characters. I've got the last characters. And then I'm putting the two together. The first or the last few and the first two. And then I've got the function. Okay. Do I have any questions on this? Okay, I'm back in the chat. Concatenate, yes. You can use the concatenate, that's not a problem. So basically what you would do now is you would concatenate. Can I spell concatenate? Concatenate this one with this one. It will still give you the same one. Okay. Right. Are we okay still? Yeah, I don't know. I lost you. Sorry. We had load shedding in between and then I had to change connections. Okay. Are we okay with this? Right. So let's have a look at what we're getting marks for. Well, I'm not going to look at the if, but yes, the if is check the monthly, check the expiration, expired if both are true, hashtag if none of them are true, remind if only one is true, and then obviously I had to do the cell referencing. The marks for this is quite easy. The left function to extract the first two from A3, the right or the mid function to extract from character number 3 up to the end, and then the combination of the two. Someone saying press Alt F4. Forward. Okay. Rina, should I rather take questions now? Or should I
Yes.
start the prelim?
No, Bettina, I don't think there will be time for the prelim. I think if we can ask the educators to spend some time with the learners with the prelim exam, and then you can rather take questions for the remainder. Thank you, Bettina.
Okay, Rina, I want to, there is a very difficult nested if function in the prelim. Can I maybe just reference that one?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, so let's have, I'm going to go to the prelim and I'm going to open that question where that very difficult nested if is as well. Why do you need cell reference? Someone's asking, you need cell reference because cell reference for, I'm assuming absolute cell reference, because when you drag it down, it is going to cause a problem when you drag it down and the cell should not change together with the autofill. Okay, so that's why you need absolute cell reference. Okay, so I just want to open the prelim. I'm not going to go into detail. I just want to reference the very difficult nested if like the one I just did. Was there very difficult nested if? Oh, there wasn't actually, but there is one in the final, yeah. So there is one, 7.2, which is not something I prepared, but I'm going to do it. If you look at 7.2, you'll see that that very difficult nested if is also here. So you'll see that the airport's worksheet needs you to do certain things. Now, besides the point of what the data is, what I basically from the question want to know is how many tests should be done. Okay, so it says insert a combination of functions in column E to display the following. Top, if an airline is located in Gauteng and the budget is more than 2 million. Normal, if the airline is not in Gauteng, but the budget is more than 2 million. And average, if the budget is not more than 2 million and the airline is in Gauteng. So basically, what I want to say is that this is very similar to what we've done. We've basically tested now if a person is monthly and his card has expired. In this specific case, you need to test, is a person in Gauteng and is the budget more than 2 million? What happens if a person is not in Gauteng? Then basically it's false, okay? So if a person, see all the conditions are false. If a person is in Gauteng and then there is another test, what is another test? The other test will be, is the budget more than 2 million or not? So is this in Gauteng or not? Is the budget more than 2 million or not? And this third thing that you need to consider is how many of these things should be true. In this case, 2 of them should be true. So the nested if will look very similar to the one we just did, where you start the first test, and when the first test is true, you do the second test. If the second test, or at least if the first test is false, everything is false. If the second test is false, something should happen. So basically what you need to do the whole time is, what is the first test? What is the second test? And the third thing you need to test is, when do you check for the second test? Do you check for the second test when the first one is true, or do you check for the second test when the first one is false? That's basically all I'm trying to say. Yes, Nicole, I am streaming again. Okay, I'm going to give you guys a few minutes for questions. Give me a few questions in the chat. Give me an indication that you are still there. How yeah, this was quite a difficult question paper, but this is a final exam question paper. It's the supplementary. So you need to definitely make sure that you are able to do these things. Now, remember, it's the first time you're going to write an exam, so don't be overwhelmed. Remember, you're going to do this over and over and over again, and hopefully you will understand it. Okay. Do I have any questions? Is there a hand? Is that a hand?
Looks like there's a hand, yes.
Okay, tell me. Central College, please speak. Anybody? There's a chat. Let's see. Now, this was hard for you and for me. Okay. I don't know, Rinat, what do you want me to do now? It doesn't seem like there are any more questions.
Oh, thank you, Futini. I don't know if you have something to share or maybe just a last quick win for them on Excel.
Okay, so basically, when you look at the questions now, you'll see, let's take the prelim, you'll see that the questions usually start with easier questions. Okay, so look at 3.1, you'll see basically some formatting, and then the first function will be a general grade 10 function. Okay, so you'll see that the next function, because question papers need to go from easy to difficult. So you'll start with some formatting, and remember there are different types of learners. Some of you are good in Excel, some of you are better in Access, others are very good in HTML. But all of you should make sure that you get the marks for the first few questions, right? That are usually formatting questions. You should get the mark for the grade 10 functions at least, because this is the current age of the employee on December. So basically, this is just a subtraction. In our supplementary one, it was, if I remember correctly, it was the average. No, this was just a count. This was an average. So can you see that it's basically grade 10 functions? Can you see my screen? Let me share it again. Okay. So this is basically grade 10 functions. As you move on to the question, whether it's the supplementary or whether it's the prelim or whether it's any question paper, you'll see that the questions start becoming more difficult as you go along. So it's basically the grade 10 functions. Remember when you're doing your PAT, then it's the grade 11 functions, and then it's the difficult combination functions. There will be at least 2 combination functions. So when you do combination functions, use the trick I just showed you. Do the functions in the building block and then copy them in. All right. Alternatively, do them in the building blocks and just reference them, because you can do the left, you can do the right, and you can concatenate. Okay. The nested if you do something difficult like that, you were able to test whether it's monthly or single. You were able to test whether it's expired or not, right? So then reference those 2 functions into your cell, and then you can at least get, I'm going to go as far as to say 2/3 of the marks, okay? Then you look for the nested if. At least not the nested if, the conditional formatting. You look for the conditional formatting because the conditional formatting is usually quite it's easier to understand than the very difficult nested if. Look for the conditional formatting and then do the conditional formatting as much as you can. Then you look for the graph. Now, if the graph is not in question 3, look at the prelim, or in question 4, it will most probably be in question 7. Okay, so basically in the 10 minutes reading time that you have, don't just start reading from the top to the bottom. That's useless. Rather go through the questions and trying to identify the functions and try and identify where are these questions that I was talking about. Where's the formatting question? Where's the grade 10 function? Where's the graph? Where's the conditional formatting? Because it's only going to be I wouldn't say more than 3 or 4 grade 11 and 12 functions. Okay, so don't be blinded by Excel. You need to at least get 50% for Excel by only doing the formatting, conditional formatting, graphs, and grade 10 functions. It's only those very, very difficult functions. Remember, the question paper caters for the people that get 80 and plus, and they need to deserve it. So they will get it if they can do those very difficult functions. But depending on the percentage that you are aiming for, you do the questions that you need to do. And how do you know where they are? You will read through them in your 10-minute reading time. Don't start reading from the top to the bottom. That's a waste of time. Check, what's the function? Is it a grade 10 function? Can I do it? What is the formatting? What is the conditional formatting saying? And those of you that are working for 80% and more, find the nested if and try and determine, is there what are the 2 criteria? Are the 2 criteria supposed to be both true for the function to work or only one? Is it an and? Is it an or? You need to decide that when you read the question paper. So basically, if you look at the prelim, you'll see that it's the graph in question 7. You can do that. It's the very difficult nested if in question 7. And 7.3 was actually the subtotal, which I'm sure you can also do. If you look at the question in question 3, it's basically formatting. It's a grade 10 function. It's an if. I can see the if a date function. Over here, there's formatting. This is text because the first 3 letters is a text function. It's going to be there. There's conditional formatting. Okay, there's a formula. I don't know how difficult it is, but based on the marks, it can't be too difficult. And then there's the count ifs function. So the more you work out the Excel question papers, the more you will start seeing a pattern in the questions. And then you will be able to identify the difficult ones. Last tip. When you work out a question paper, do not work out a question paper from question 1 to question 7. Do question 1 and 2 of all the papers that you have. Do question 3 and 4 and the Excel in question 7 of all the papers that you have, so that you can start picking up the patterns, so that you can see which questions are asked. Oh, wait, most of the questions that are asked are usually the same. I just need to analyze the data. Okay. And that's my last point, Rina. I don't know if there's a question. Let me see. No, there isn't.
Okay. Oh, thank you so much, Bettini. Thank you for still being part of all of our lives, the learners and the educators and the facilitators. It's really appreciated. The moment I phoned you and asked if you'll do this session, you said yes without any hesitation, and I really thank you for that. Thank you for your time. Thank you, teachers and learners. Tomorrow's session will be on HTML. Please attend that one as well. And on Friday, it is Word. So we're still continuing. Have a wonderful evening. Make sure you completed the forms. I don't know, Kim, if there's anything else. If there's nothing else, then you can be released. Thank you, Fatina, and everybody.